Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Thanks so much for clicking a new video of mine. It means a lot that you guys keep clicking. If you guys keep clicking, I'll keep making. And today we're talking about this episode of Survivor, episode 9 of Survivor 44. It's a decent episode. I enjoyed specifically the ending. The tribal was very live, the first pure live tribal we've gotten in what it seems like a very long time, probably since the first episode of 41. And it really was an interesting vote out. I think it proved that although there's all this strategy going on, they can stick to their alliances, which I think is pretty cool. I did not like who went home as far as like them going home with their edit, and I was convinced that Danny was going to go home, but we'll get into all that. If you guys haven't already, like, share, subscribe, do all that good stuff because it's easy, it's free, and it really does help the channel out. Okay, so we start with Tribal basically from the last episode going exactly how many players wanted it to go. Danny was proud of his bucket list as a successful use of an idol, and Yam Yam liked that another person who had written his name down had gone home. So Lauren, Jamie, and Kane were not so happy about it. They were dismayed that the vote didn't go their way, explaining that they tried to get Brandon to split the vote in case of an idol, and that he, being Brandon, insisted that it wasn't necessary. And so they said it was kind of his fault that he goes home here. With Danny's idol used, the next morning the race was on to find the idol. Of course, everyone's looking, but the person who finds it is actually Heidi. It's weird because the edit kind of builds up Danny as the person who's going to find it again, which would have been so freaking cool. And then it's kind of a letdown to see like Heidi, someone who's hasn't really gotten a big edit in the season, find it. But I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world. After the idol hunt, the players realized that they had an off day where they could just focus on building relationships instead of strategizing. Yam Yam organized like a guessing game around camp, and then Carolyn opened up to the group about her addiction and going from being super addicted to being sober. I feel like this is a very key editing moment for both Yam Yam and Carolyn because they're exhibiting a large part of like a winner's edit, having a personal connection with people, having a big story, and I think it really fuels the fire for one of them to possibly win here. Franny admits to being really drawn into Carolyn's story and recognizing how she's opening up to the group, which again just makes Carolyn look even better and may foreshadow a future alliance between Franny and Carolyn. In the tree mill, the castaways kind of learned that their next challenge would have a sacrifice for rice, and they assumed, like in 41 and 42, that they were going to have to give up immunity spots for rice. Danny was really on the side of not giving up spots, just playing the game, being the season where everyone plays, which I think is super cool. Carson, on the other hand, the guy who was sick last episode, is not so for that. And when they get to the challenge and it's raining, Carson's just very adamant that people step out so that they all can eat. And as he puts it, for the tribe. Danny is still sticking to his guns, saying, I think that we should play. We came to play, and there's no reason to sit out of a challenge. At the challenge, of course, it comes down to Franny and Danny facing each other. It's a tough challenge that ends pretty quickly with Franny winning and beating out Danny here. And so they get back into camp, and everyone's just grateful that the 4 people who sat out. Those 4 people were Kane, Heidi, and then of course Carson as well, and the last person that sat out was Lauren. Of course, Kane acknowledged that no one would stick to that promise that they all made them after that they chose to sit out, which is that they quote unquote wouldn't vote them out, because it's new era, no one keeps their promises, and so he felt fully expected to be voted for that night. Seeing the game divided evenly between 3 tribes, Heidi and Danny were prepared to work with Tika in order to take out another Ratu member. That's of course the best plan for them. They of course wanted to do this by getting out Kane. That being said, the Soka and Tika members wanted to do what they could do to get Jamie to play her idol in order to flush it out of the game as well. When Jamie came to Carson, Jam, and Carolyn, Carson let her know that Soka was aiming at her, but assured Jamie that Tika would be working with Ratu to make a move against Danny. Because of what happened last time, Lauren wanted Ratu and Tika to split the votes between Danny and Heidi, and the idea of a split vote made Jamie feel even more vulnerable, so she spoke to Lauren and Kane about the possibility of their advantages getting stolen with the knowledge is power advantage, which is not in this game, but they obviously don't know that. Jamie gave Kane her idol, Lauren gave Jamie her extra vote for safekeeping. Meanwhile, Franny grew concerned that the Tika members in the middle were going to try and blindside them, so she goes to Danny and asks if they can basically blindside the Tika members, and more specifically Jam. Danny shoots this down, says it's silly, which I actually agree with now looking back, because obviously this vote really worked here. But I do see what Franny's saying here. Like the Tika members are going to flip back and forth all the way to the end of the game. And Danny is shown as kind of an asshole here by shooting down her idea, which doesn't really serve well for his edit. You know, Danny says, quote unquote, play the game smart, and then shot her idea down because the Ratu people have advantages and they're the enemy. When Tika huddled on their own about which direction they want to go, Yam Yam pointed out that Kane has voted for him in the past, and he wants to vote out, Kane, because that's like what he does. He loves voting out people who have voted for him, being Jam Jam, in the past. Carolyn disagrees and says that Danny is the biggest threat, and she wanted him out ever since that meeting between him and Brandon, where him and Brandon were broing out and leaving her out of the conversation. Carson only wanted the three of them to stay together so that they can control the vote, but was less concerned about who they went for. And then at Tribal, of course, we see the split vote that Ratu had planned with Tika completely fall apart here. I was convinced it was Danny based on his edit and him being shown as kind of aggressive and an asshole. But their split vote happens. It's just that the Tika members don't actually split with them. They just flip over with the Soka members. You essentially get the three Ratus splitting their votes, plus they have one extra vote that is used by Jamie at Tribal. And so they have 3 votes split between Danny and Heidi, and then plus 1 extra. And the other 6 players vote all for Kane, except for 1, who I believe was Franny, who put an extra vote on Jamie just in case. So my closing thoughts are as follows. I think the edit could have been better for this episode. It was definitely confusing, and I had to sit for a second and really think about it to figure out exactly why there were so many votes on random people. 4 people got votes, and we didn't really get an explanation. But at the same time, a lot of those kind of obscure votes didn't really need to be explained. As far as Kane's boot edit, I did like it. I just wish it started a little bit earlier. I felt like I didn't really get to know Kane until this episode. And I really do think he would have been a very good character to see before this episode. I think I'm very hopeful for this merge, as I feel like we're getting a lot more personal moments, but not like necessarily the sob stories that we always groan and moan at. And overall, I'm excited and I'm positive on this season right now. But what do you guys think of this season? What do you guys think of the episode? And what do you guys think of the edit right now going on? Who are you rooting for? Let me know down below in the comments. As always, none of this happens without you guys. Without you guys, I'm Mr. Weird Guy speaking in a weird microphone. And if that's it, I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Peace.